Listen, I know I'm like 5 years late to the party on this, and I understand you're probably well aware of all of this already, so this video is purely for the people who aren't. If you don't know what Metal Gear Solid is, then I pity you. Metal Gear Solid is one of the greatest video game franchises ever created, hands down. Each game is unique and special in its own way, and they all bring something new to the table, and it all helps to advance gaming as a whole. One of the most objectively greatest and most realistic games that ever came out is Metal Gear Solid 3, and I don't know if we'll ever get something like that again, and the knowledge of that honestly hurts my soul a little bit. But this video isn't talking about that. This video is specifically here for those who have never played Metal Gear Solid before, and have definitely never played Metal Gear Solid 5, and this is literally me just telling you, hey, you need to go play this game. If you love video games, or more specifically, you love shooters and video games with stealth action or tactical espionage action, you straight up need to play this game. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it's amazing and it has so many features. I'm just going to lay out some of the things you can actually do in it. Let's take my favorite example for the game to try to explain just how open it is. There's a mission where there's a dude in a base nearby.
Your orders are to take him out.
The way you choose to handle this is entirely up to you and your decision alone, and you're not limited to anything. You could just snipe the dude. You could go in guns blazing and gun him down. You could sneak in with suppressed headshots and personally slit his throat. Knock out everyone with tranquilizer rounds and then hit him with a sleep grenade and kidnap him. Shoot your rocket arm off and just blow it up in his face. You can just bring a tank if you want. You can ride in on a helicopter that's playing Ride of the Valkyries and gun him down from the minigun of it. You could have your sniper companion who comes with you just kill him. You could have your dog go in and personally slit his throat for you. Or have your dog just fold him out through one of the black holes you can get later on in the game. You could even just choose to watch him for a little while. Intel says he meets up with some dudes. You could find their route. Stop them on that route. Sneak up on one of them. Plant some C4 on his butt. Then wait for him to get to the meeting and just detonate that C4. And if that's not crazy enough, that's all in one mission. One mission out of 50, and that's only mission 3. And you have a full world to free roam and explore. All the missions are highly replayable, and you have optional objectives throughout every single mission. In a normal game, when you're going for a 100% completion, it can become a slog and it can become difficult to want to get through it. Not Metal Gear Solid 5. In Metal Gear Solid 5, when you play a mission once for the first time, after you beat it or decide to go back to it after beating the game or whenever you go back to it, you'll realize, oh, there were optional objectives that you may not have even realized. So once you go back to replay it, you can do those. But there's also a ranking system. So what happens is you play through a mission once for the first time, then you go back and you get S rank on it, so you get the highest rank possible to show that you're amazing at being stealthy and tactical. Then you go back in with all these bullshit items the game gives you in the late game to do the optional objectives. I told you a lot of options earlier for dealing with that dude. What I didn't tell you about is some of the other options that lock you from getting S rank that you can do when you're doing the optional objectives. Some of those are things like dropping a sleep bomb on the base and just walking in when everyone's knocked out from the gas. You can just launch a mortar at him that'll hit him with a photon balloon and yoink him out of there. You could go totally invisible, just walk in and punch him to death. You could, like, say fuck it to a sleep bomb and just bomb him normally. You can become a cyborg ninja and just full sprint in faster than anyone can properly react and take him out. You could throw in an infinite ammo bandana, just go in with a giant LMG guns blazing, and just so many more options. But not only do you get all these little ways that you can do things, the game goes further than that even. The amount of detail they put into this game is absurd. If you go on too many missions without taking a shower or going in water at all, you can start to smell bad and the enemies might notice you because of the smell. Or if you're on a mission to take out some electronics, you can just take a water gun pistol and shoot all the electronics from a distance. And one thing that will keep it fresh and interesting throughout your whole playthrough is the fact that enemies who you fight against will actually learn how you fight against them, and they'll learn to counter you. So if you go in with a tranquilizer dart to the head a little too much, enemies will all wear helmets. If you go in guns blazing too much, they'll be in full body gear. If you go a little too hard with the decoys, then they will start using decoys against you. They'll learn what you do, and they'll actively begin to counter it, keeping the game fresh and keeping you on your toes. And that probably might sound a little bit annoying, like how do you end up dealing with that? Well, here's where the game gets even better. You're the leader of a private military corporation. As you're going around, you can collect dudes to add them to your own private military and put them into different sections, like the combat section or the R&D house. And if you put them in the R&D house, you unlock more options to build new gear, so you can get yourself a better sneaking suit or full invisibility later on. Just different gear and items and weapons and stuff like that that you can customize and kit yourself out with for the different missions you're going to be taking on. This can even go as far as fully customizing out the guns by swapping out the barrels, stocks, grips, and everything else involved with them to make some truly insane weapons. And, like I said, you can put them in your combat units or other units, and you can actually send people out on combat missions to disrupt enemy supply lines. That's how you get rid of the enemies using things against you. And the game, with all of these systems, does a great job of keeping it fresh as you play through it, because you're only going to start with a basic suppressed rifle and a basic single-shot tranquilizer gun that you have to recock every time you shoot it. If you got the crazy stuff at the start, it's just going to feel the same every mission. This means that you're going to start with a photon balloon that just yoinks off one person and end with opening black holes that teleport guys straight to your base. It's wild and it's awesome, and it's so much fun to see just what new and crazy stuff you can actually develop as you get further into the game. And hey, I mentioned that you're a PMC, or a private military corporation, and everyone else who plays the game is also a PMC. You actually will end up setting up an FOB, or a forward operating base, somewhere out in international waters, and so will pretty much every single other player. These FOBs are entirely online, and all of the stuff you put on them and store on them is as well. Meaning that you can actually go and invade other players' FOBs to try and steal their materials and personnel, or have your own get invaded where you can come in and defend it from the invader as an online component to the single player. There's also a full normal online mode with a handful of dedicated players where you can do the normal team deathmatch and stuff like that. And I know I just sat here and gushed about the game for a solid while, and I only really did that because truly, honestly, I believe if you've never played this game before, you absolutely should. There's a slight caveat to the greatness that is Metal Gear Solid 5, which is a couple things. One is the fact that it's the 9th game in a franchise, and it's also the 4th game canonically in the franchise. While that does sound bad, because how are you going to follow if it's the 9th game or the 4th game in a story, I want you to know that the main story for this game is almost entirely self-contained. There are hints and throwbacks to the other games, but there's nothing serious, and if you never play the other ones, you'll never know or even care. However, Metal Gear Solid as a franchise is absolutely insane and does tons of crazy stuff, and the first mission of Metal Gear Solid 5, which probably put off a lot of people who've never played the series before, does a lot of that insane stuff. You'll have a giant flaming whale that eats a helicopter and a fire dude who can just absorb bullets and send them back at you, and some kind of floating kid who teleports through walls, and it's just absurdly over-the-top craziness, and it really makes no sense, and trust me, it doesn't really ever get explained if you play through the whole game, even though I said it's a self-contained story. And even if you play the other games, you're only going to have somewhat of an idea of what's going on, but the main reason I'm telling you all of this now is because I want you to know most of the game's not like that at all. 95% of Metal Gear Solid 5 is the insane, awesome, do whatever you want, however you want kind of gameplay I talked about earlier that makes it so absolutely amazing. The other issue here is that, while I did say the story is self-contained, it's still not finished. This game was taking way too long to make, as Kojima goes absolutely wild with his games, and he really truly planned for this to be the last one, so he was going as hard as he could. They got less than a third of the way done with the game and still released it. Now, within saying that, it still took me 115 hours of playtime to get to 100% completion, even though it took me less the later times I've did it, as I've reached 100% completion in this game 3 separate times now. It did take some time to do it, and there is still a lot of content here, but it doesn't have everything they planned. The self-contained story of Act 1 is super good and does tie up everything nice and neatly. Act 2 starts, and then we never got the Act 3 we wanted, or the other 2 entire parts to the game. While that is upsetting, it is still absolutely worth playing, because going into it just for the gameplay alone, it is still one of the best games ever made. I won't say it's perfect, but I'll say it's damn close. So if you love games, you love shooters, you love stealth action games, you love games that are open and let you do whatever you want and treat you like an adult who actually has a thought process above that of a toddler who needs to know, hey, you need to go to this objective and do this thing, you should absolutely play this game, and you owe it to yourself to play Metal Gear Solid 5. Plus, it's regularly like $5 on Steam.